friends. So good to be with you tonight. My name is Michael Carey, and I just want to share a couple of points before we get started on the details here. First, due to the sensitive nature of this topic, you want to ensure that there aren't any children or really anyone around that within earshot who might overhear this webinar, right? So you might want to go ahead and move to a safe place or put on some headphones, earbuds, whatever that is. Secondly, I want to just remind you, if you didn't see it in the email, we've arranged for a bonus for you, the people who are attending live at the end of this webinar, just as an incentive to stay. I know your time is valuable. There's so many different things that are pressing in. Life gets in there. So stay till the end. Stay till the end with me, and you'll receive a special bonus. And let's just go ahead and open up in a word of prayer, if you would. Pray with me. God, we just come before you, and we give you this webinar. We give you all of the content. We give you everything that we're going to share tonight. We ask that you would speak through it, that you would open the hearts and minds of everybody that's listening. Open my heart and mind, and just help me to say the words and the topic, the points that you want me to make. We just ask that you would live and breathe through this content, and that your message would come across loud and clear to all who are listening. And it is in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Amen. All right. So folks, something that you should know about me, I consider myself a no-nonsense kind of a guy, right? I feel like I tell it like it is. And you came here to either learn how to be free from unwanted sexual behavior for yourself or for a loved one. Maybe it's for a teenage or an adult kid of yours. Most of the people that attend, it's for you, and for your own freedom that you're searching for. So, you're here tonight because I assume that you want to know the truth. You really want to know and understand what it's going to take to be free. So I'm just going to tell it just like it is, okay? And give you what it is that I have learned from my own personal experience. This isn't textbook knowledge. This isn't something that I read in a book or anything like that. But I believe very strongly in this information that I'm going to share with you tonight, because this is the path that I took myself to achieve freedom from unwanted sexual behavior. And so if I could just share briefly what that looked like, the backstory, and how I came to discovering this path to freedom. My cousin introduced me to porn when I was about 10 or 11 years old. Typical story. I'm sure that so many of you can relate to that. And it escalated through my teen years and then some. When I met Jesus, I was around 25 years old. Porn and masturbation stopped. And I really thought that being a Christ follower meant that it was going to be gone for good, that Jesus was just going to take it away, But after a few months, I started masturbating again. Then I started looking at porn again. And it just started going back to those old behaviors soon enough. Now, being a Christian, I felt huge amounts of shame. Huge amounts of shame. So much so that I hid it. So I started living like a double life, right? The people in church had no idea that this is the way that I was behaving, nights, on the weekends, whatever it was. I felt so alone, okay? I thought that I was the only one in my church who struggled like this. I read statistics, Barna shares something about like 68% of Christian men look at porn on a regular basis, I thought, well, those 68% are not in my church or whatever it is, right? I didn't know anyone who was confessing and talking about this topic in any community except in, outside of the church, at work. I was in IT and in the computer industry. Some of the guys would look at porn, in the data center. And so it was talked about far more outside of the church than it was inside. That was my personal experience. I pray that maybe you had a different experience. if you are a Christ follower as well. So the huge amounts of shame that I felt, I just kept it a secret, right? So I got married thinking that that would be the answer. But, you know, it was just about the same thing when I trusted Christ, you know. It stopped for a little while and then it started coming back in little by little. After a few months, it was all back. The unwanted sexual behavior, I was just back on this pattern of looking at it over and over and over again. I was ashamed and I still kept it hidden. So looking back, I didn't know this and I didn't understand what I was doing to myself, but I was in an affair waiting to happen. Okay. If you can relate to that, I eventually did cheat and she divorced me. I felt incredibly defeated, depressed, and alone. We had a daughter who was about to turn 3 years old, and I was heartbroken for her. But being divorced, I then had the house to myself, and I just went back to even more porn and masturbation. And it was ridiculous. So I had a great computer job. I was playing in the praise band at church. I led a Bible study. I served at an inner city ministry. No one would have guessed that I had this secret that I carried, secrets that I swore that I would take to my grave. Okay. So that was the cycle that maybe you can relate to. But I finally surrendered in 2009, and God began to show me the real path to freedom. Okay. And this is what it was. So let's dive into the 5 keys. And this is, this is the kind of webinar I was just thinking, gosh, yeah, I wish that I would have been able to see something like this in 2009. Oh my goodness. So 2009, 2022, all the things that I've learned over the years, guys, this still works. This is still the process. So key number 1 is this: stop trying to stop. Okay. And I know you might think that's crazy. It sounds ridiculous, but don't think of a pink elephant. Okay. What are you thinking about? A pink elephant, right? Really, when we're putting this effort into trying to stop doing something, that something is still on our mind. And I'm talking about really achieving freedom. These 5 keys are for freedom. And that's not living in freedom, is it? You know, the kind of freedom where I don't have to have the web blockers and filters. I just don't behave that way any longer. Okay. The kind of freedom, but continuously trying to stop and trying to avoid certain behavior is not freedom, but it's what we actually call behavior management. Okay. And it's a huge roadblock on the way to freedom. Now, I am all for some of those filters and blockers and things like that in the very beginning of your journey, by the way. If you use Covenant Eyes and some of these other things, I applaud that. You know, anything that you can do to help you reduce the odds. But, if there's a will, there's a way. And being in the computer industry, I found the way around all of that stuff so many years ago, around those blockers and filters and everything. So that's not the long-term cure, right? So stop trying to stop. This behavior management technique is just another method of trying to control our lives. And it just doesn't work. We need to toss out this idea of behavior management long-term. Our desire to control our life, it's a piece of what actually drives us to this compulsive behavior, because we want things to be a certain way. We want people to see us in a certain light. We try to control all of these different things, including this kind of behavior, and it just doesn't work. Controlling things is not the path to freedom. But key number 1, stop trying to stop, leads us into key number 2, which is fully surrender. We need to fully surrender. Okay. So thinking about all the control techniques and all these different things, surrender, really fully surrender. What this looked like for me in 2009 was I just said, God, I will go wherever you want me to go. I'll read whatever you want me to read. I will, do anything that you want me to do. But this last one I held on to for a while. It was very difficult, but God, I will tell whoever you want me to tell. Full surrender. Now, I'm not talking about putting out a billboard. I look at porn, with my picture. Like, no, okay? No. But we need to start inviting people into this space with us to help us, okay? And I'm going to get to that, some real specifics about that later on. But fully surrender. In Matthew 18, verse 8 and 9, Jesus, well, just before that, Jesus is talking about the very famous scripture passage that so many of you have probably read and heard, where Jesus says, if you even look at a woman with lust, you've committed adultery in your heart, right? But the very next verse, if you look right after that, he says, if your right arm causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. If your right eye causes you to sin, gouge it out and throw it away. Okay. Now, do you think Jesus really meant that, or was it a metaphor? Because we would have a bunch of blind, armless guys walking around the earth, right? Well, that's not super effective either. I think what Jesus was talking about was we need to take this problem that seriously, right? We need to engage in defeating this program, and what that looks like throughout these keys. And I'm going to give you more meat on that in a minute. What is it that we actually do? But the deal is we need to surrender the process and take this extremely seriously, but not our way, but God's way. Okay. Now, I don't want to over spiritualize this problem either, right? Some of you might be thinking that he's just talking too much about spiritual things. Okay. Yes, Jesus is the answer. There are some different things along the way that we're going to need to do, we're going to need to say, we're going to need to engage in, that's going to help us out. Because let's face it, nobody really trusts God as much as they really think or would like to think that they do, right? We have a problem with trust. Surrender is difficult because we don't fully trust God. That was my story. I didn't fully trust God. Surrender in so many ways is kind of like a process of letting go little by little, right? If we're just really honest about it. But surrender, the opposite of surrender, controlling it. I remember Nate Larkin saying over and over again, the author of Samson and the Pirate Monks, he told me, I was looking for a private solution for my private problem. Well, it's just another roadblock. And it's the reason is we can't stop on our own. It is impossible. I do not know anyone who stopped on their own and came and said, Michael, I stopped on my own. I've never heard that before, right? It just doesn't work that way. Surrender is going to involve other people, but I'm going to tell you who it is. Who can we trust with this information, right? Because we're ashamed. We lie about this behavior because we're ashamed about it, right? Trying to control the means to which we get free is because of the shame, for sure. That's a big piece of it. And why doesn't God just take this problem away? I remember praying that hundreds of times. God, take it away. Would you take away the desire, God? Would you just help me to not feel the desire anymore? When I go to sleep tonight, I'm going to wake up in the morning. Help it to be gone tomorrow. It's a new day, right? But if he did that, if he just zapped us and we were done, well, first of all, one of the main reasons it's because it's a process of growth. Okay. Even in these cases where the desire does get zapped away in these specific stories, there's still a lot of growth, a lot of work that we need to do on ourselves. Okay. And that's leading into the third key. But the growth process is really like the butterfly. If you see our logos, in most, or if not all of our logos that we've created, we've had some talented people create for us. There's a butterfly in there. The struggle for the butterfly to escape the cocoon is what pumps the blood into the wings and allows them to fly. If you help the butterfly out of the cocoon, it cannot fly. It won't fly. It won't become all that it was meant to be, right? So interesting that God gave us that as a process to look at, So we'd miss out on all the growth that's involved that we need to engage in. There is a process. The path to freedom involves working on ourselves. Instead of working on the problem, what we do is we work on the root of the problem. Okay. So that's the third key. Dig up the roots. We're going to dig up the roots, because digging up the roots, if we don't do that, it's kind of like pulling the tops of the weeds off, they're bound to just grow back again and again and again. In Matthew 15:19, Jesus said, out of the heart comes evil thoughts and behavior. All of the behavior, some of what she listed was sexual immorality and adultery, murder, theft, lying, cheating. All of these different things come from the heart, okay? So we need to look at the behavior sort of as if as if it's a fever, all right? If we just treat the fever with Tylenol or whatever it is, that's not necessarily going to help whatever it is that's inside of us, right? We have to do some other things to cure the virus that may be inside of us, okay? So we need to go a little bit deeper. So the behavior is really a symptom of the fact that something is going on inside of us that we have to address. For most of us, it's a lot of somethings inside of us that we have to address. Okay. So we need to dig out the roots. And part of number 2 and 3, surrender and dig up the roots, is we can't put a time frame on digging up the roots. Men ask me, how long is this going to take for me to get free? How long do I have to keep working on this? Well, I answer that question with a question. How long have you been struggling? Right? I mishandled my sexuality for 27 years. So how long do you think it should take for me to get free after 27 years? Right? 27 years of masturbating and looking at porn. To think that's going to go away in a minute, or the work that I have to do on myself, that's going to be instantaneous, or it's going to last 3 weeks or 3 months or whatever it is. We cannot put a time frame on how long it's going to take. How long is the work going to take us? Okay. So that's part of the keys here, and how they all filter together. Stop trying to stop, fully surrender. The third one is dig up the roots. And then the fourth, we start to move into some things that you might have tried this. Accountability. I've heard guys say that I just need to pray some more. I need to read my Bible some more. I need to grow a little closer to God, and I need to have an accountability partner. Okay. That might be helpful for some very, very isolated cases. But friends, that is not the path to freedom. That's a piece, but there's several other pieces that are missing there. Okay. We need the right type of accountability. Okay. Yeah, sure. Reading scriptures and growing closer to God is going to be helpful, right? Absolutely. As I mentioned earlier, we don't really trust God, as much as we think we do or say that we do, right? So yes, growing in that relationship is immensely helpful, right? The thing is God put us here and wired us for relationship. So it can't be me and my Bible on an island with nobody else, right? So we involve other people. The right type of accountability, and I love Michael Cusick in his book. Surfing for God is the name of the book. And he talks about 3 different types of accountability, okay? Coach, cop, and cardiac accountability. So coach accountability is where you go and you confess to your accountability partner, or he gets that report from Covenant Eyes or whatever it is. And it's like, oh man, there was just a slip up. He slaps you on the back. Get back in the game, man. Let's review the game plan, and then cop accountability. Cop accountability is when there's a consequence, right? I am going to give up playing in the praise band if I look at porn again, right? And you're going to hold me accountable to that, right? If I confess to you, then you're going to hold me accountable to leaving the praise band. So I'm going to think of some kind of a punishment for myself. This process only brings more shame into us, because we end up behaving that way again. This was actually my story. I actually did have an accountability partner where I said I'm not going to play in the praise band. And after I looked at porn again, I didn't tell him. I mean, that was the state of my heart back then. I didn't tell him. I lied and said, hadn't been looking at porn anymore because I didn't want to give up playing in the praise band. So I can say that today and just kind of laugh at myself because of the state of my heart and how much growth that there's been. It's amazing. So cardiac accountability, it's amazing just how much we can grow is what I'm saying, and how much growth there is and how that feels, to really achieve freedom is a beautiful thing. So cardiac accountability. Cardiac is having someone, an accountability partner where there's no shame involved, someone who's been where you're at and has achieved the freedom that you're looking for, okay? The accountability that we're engaging in these first 3 keys, especially in digging up the roots, okay? So that's why it's cardiac, heart accountability. The accountability that we're doing the necessary work of excavating the underlying root issues that are causing the behavior, okay? And so, yes, it's immensely helpful to have someone who has been where you're at and has achieved the freedom that you're looking for, okay? And that is the 5th key. Number 5 is a group of men, but not just any group of men, but what I've found to be incredibly helpful, and honestly, again, I've never met anyone who has achieved real lasting freedom without having a group like this, a closed group, a group of men that's only open to men who struggle with unwanted sexual behavior. This is shame reducing. We can show up with all of our brokenness and we don't have to pretend to be better than we really are. We look around the room and we don't have to guess. Do these guys, look at porn? Are they doing the kind of things that I've done? Do they have this unwanted sexual behavior in their lives? And the answer is yes. Okay. So we can relax and we can be ourselves. We don't have to put on the mask and the facade, this false self that we show the world. It's just a manufactured version of ourselves. It's not our authentic true self. We need to become our authentic true self. We really want people to believe that we've got our act together because we're afraid of losing relationship, right? We want to fit in. The masquerade is exhausting. And it's part of the reason that we keep turning to unwanted sexual behavior. Because unwanted sexual behavior, gives this fantasy that we're perfect. That's one of the reasons. There's several others, but if you just to say, in porn, when it's heterosexual porn, the man is always doing everything right. Everything that he does, she loves. His breath never stinks. His hands are never cold. That's not reality. That is fantasy. It's a fantasy of love and acceptance and nurturing. We think that it's sexual, but that's a smokescreen. There's so much more going on to this problem than just the idea of I want sex. That's the lie that we believe. We tell ourselves it's just about our sexuality. Okay. But God gives us a little bit. He gives us this sex drive. I shouldn't say it's a little bit, but it's, if you picture this being how much sex drive that God actually gives us, the underlying roots that we're talking about actually exaggerate that sex drive. And it causes us to have a craving that is far beyond what God designed for us to have. Okay. So we need a group of men where we immediately fit into without needing to wear the mask, where we can live authentically in that group. And then as we're in that group, we start to understand ourselves better, and we can live more and more authentically in the presence of others outside of the group. And it's incredibly freeing. Okay. So the path to freedom really does involve becoming the person that God intended you to become. Now, so, I just want another disclaimer here when I talk about gender specific things. Certainly there are women who struggle with porn and unwanted sexual behavior as well. In my case, and what, the audience that I mostly minister to and that seek help from our ministry are men who struggle. And it isn't just pornography, but Christian men who are engaged in affairs, going to prostitutes, men who struggle with same-sex attraction and unwanted same-sex attraction. And this is the reality of it for the most part. So when I talk about a men's group, and that what I'm thinking of, if you're a woman who struggles, and certainly that is possible for sure, then the same apply to you. Okay. It's just the opposite, a woman needing a group of women. Okay. A closed group of women. Okay. So now then, this closed group in this fifth, now we have the 5 keys here, and just in review, key number 1 is stop trying to stop, and then fully surrender, dig up the roots, having the right type of accountability, and then a closed group. The closed group is immensely powerful and necessary. And so I want to just go through some things here and what we've done, myself, some of my great friends and top volunteers in our ministry. We've put together a closed group, and I'm going to describe what that looks like. But this is the process. And after 2009, I was telling you my story when I started that path to freedom. In 2012 is when I left the computer industry and I started in vocational ministry, helping men achieve freedom. So it's kind of a strange job, isn't it? I help men get free from unwanted sexual behavior. Absolutely. It is incredibly rewarding and powerful to see men become the husbands and the fathers that God always intended them to be, that they've always wanted to be. It's a really exciting and beautiful thing. And there's crisis. Yes, there's divorce. There's a lot of pain that I see. But seriously, it's worth it. And whatever happens in your life, my friend, moving forward and in and through this process and this path to freedom, I've got to tell you that tasting freedom, once you taste it, you want to fight for it, and you want to fight to keep that freedom. Okay. So I was telling you, my friends, several friends, top volunteers in our ministry, men who have struggled. These are men who have struggled with unwanted sexual behavior, just like you and I, and have achieved the freedom that you're desiring. We developed a full-on system that will place you in the trajectory, that's this path to freedom, and it's called Men in the Battle. Okay. Men in the Battle is for men 18 and older who struggle or have struggled with unwanted sexual behavior. So whatever your situation is, married, separated, single, divorced, this is for you. So Men in the Battle consists of men who have struggles with any variety of behavior, porn, affairs, prostitutes, same-sex attraction, all of these things that I talked about. And what it is online video curriculum and worksheets. And we take this very seriously. So the idea of number 5 and these 5 keys of a closed group, well, we take it a step further. We make it an educational discipleship type of a closed group. Our facilitators are trained, okay, to run the groups. And these are small groups that meet for 90 minutes, mostly over Zoom. Wherever possible, we can have a group in person. We certainly do want to do that. But we have men all over the country and several overseas, all over the US here and several overseas as well, that are in our groups. And it is really, really exciting to see these guys dig in and start to really understand and dig into the roots. It's what our curriculum does. Okay, so it's an incredible process. The growth and the feeling of growing and achieving all of that. It's a beautiful process, my friend. Okay, so these facilitators have experienced freedom, and they're dedicated to helping you apply the curriculum into your lives. Okay, so we have multiple online groups that are just starting out right now. And that's the one of the purposes, obviously, for giving this webinar, is that this is an opportunity for you to engage in something that's going to be immensely helpful for you. So I'm going to start taking questions here, where you can, I see one already popping up. That's awesome. So there is a little bit of a delay in this webinar software, whatever it is, 20, 30 seconds, I don't know, something like that. But as I go through this process here, you can start to type in questions if you'd like. But I just wanted to say, and moving along, so with Men in the Battle, we have online groups, what I was talking about. We have online Q&A meetings with my wife and I. So men from Men in the Battle get to ask questions of my wife. My wife leads the women's side. Women in the Battle is for women who are married to the guys in Men in the Battle. So they've experienced the pain of hearing that their husband has had an affair or is looking at porn. And so there is a group for them as well. But you get to ask questions of my wife, get a woman's perspective on things, anonymous questions. But we do this Q&A live meetings over Zoom. And we have a private online community portal to connect with the men in your group. And then we have an app for Android and for Apple, so that we can connect, we can engage in this entire system just on that app. If you use a smartphone or a tablet, you can certainly use a web browser too, of course, right? But so the system, this educational system that goes along with the groups throughout the week, what happens is you'll be watching the video curriculum and engaging in the worksheets and doing the homework that's going to help set you free, my friend. And then the 90-minute meeting with the trained facilitator and a group of guys, and we're talking about 8 or 9 guys and the facilitator. And then so this discussion group and the facilitator helps lead the discussion and helps you apply the curriculum into your life. I want to invite you to join Men in the Battle and get on this path to freedom. I'm not talking about hitting that new 3-week record, of being porn free. I remember, trying to set that record, but again, it was just trying to control it. But I mean, getting to a place where you just don't desire to behave that way any longer. We can get there, my friend. It is very possible. It's going to take hard work, and you're going to need a lot of help to get there. But the work is going to be on excavating, digging into the heart, like I was talking about. Now, I remember one last thing. I remember going to a seminar like this years and years ago, and I was thinking, okay, this is my wake-up call. I'm never going to behave that way again. I can do this on my own. And I didn't take advantage of the invitation so many years ago, a similar invitation here. And it was a big mistake of mine, cost me years of freedom. Don't listen to that voice, my friend, okay? You seeing this webinar is the wake-up call.